11:41 at night, a dark two-lane highway. A nurse driving home from a 12-hour shift, 11 minutes from his own front door. Behind him, a decorated sergeant, 18 years on the force, a man this town has never had a reason to doubt. Watch the driver, both hands on the wheel, dome light on, every move announced out loud before he makes it. He knows exactly how this is supposed to go.
My ID's in my back pocket, officer. Step out of the vehicle. Can I ask why, sir?
Then he breaks one rule. He asks why. One word, and you're about to watch that one word turn a nurse into a felon. Because something just went cold in the man at his window. Now, watch his right hand. This part he does on purpose. He reaches down and shuts off his own body camera. No record, no witness. Just his word against a black man's alone on an empty road. And the second that light dies, a violent struggle breaks out. That's what the report will say, 400 words of it. Here's the truth. No one is struggling. No one is resisting. A man stands against a car and never lifts a hand, while a sergeant narrates a fight that only exists in his report.
Stop resisting!
I'm not doing
Stop
anything!
reaching!
I'm not doing anything!
By midnight, the man who restarts hearts for a living is in handcuffs, booked for a violent crime he did not commit. No footage, no proof, no chance, except for the one thing the sergeant forgot: that camera never stopped recording. The police report ran 400 words. Darius Price stopped reading at word 11 because word 11 was the first lie. He was a trauma nurse, 34 years old. That night, he had restarted 2 hearts and helped pull a child from a pool. And driving home, he had done everything a black man is taught to do. At a traffic stop, the way other children are taught the pledge. Hands visible, every move announced. He had never once doubted it would be enough. It wasn't. By midnight, he was in a holding cell, in his scrubs, charged with a felony assault that never happened. 8 years of his life on the line. The camera the sergeant swore he'd shut off had been recording the whole time. But that reckoning was months away. First, this lie was going to take everything. A nurse with an assault conviction loses his license. Not suspended, gone. The board does not keep healers who beat people. So the man who had restarted 2 human hearts that very shift would never work a hospital floor again. And there was a second clock, quieter and far crueler. Renee Price, Darius's wife, was 5 months pregnant with their first child. A conviction meant 8 years. It meant Darius would meet his daughter through plexiglass. This is the part where I need you to understand the trap, because it is the part that makes what he did next so hard. They offered him a deal. His public defender was a tired, sharp woman named Gail Foster, who carried 140 cases, and believed maybe 4 of her clients were truly innocent. She sat across from him in a concrete room and laid it out flat, because she was honest, and the math was ugly. Plead guilty to a single misdemeanor, disorderly conduct, not the felony, and Darius would walk out that afternoon. No prison, time served. He would still lose the license, but he would be there when his daughter was born.
Take it. You go home this afternoon.
It is the word of an officer of the year against a man who
I've
asked
lost
why.
this exact case 9 times, Mr. Price.
There is no footage. His body camera was deactivated. The dash cam was inconclusive. You go to trial and lose, you are gone for 8 years.
Take the deal. Go home tonight and hold your wife.
Darius sat with the ultrasound photo he kept folded in his scrubs pocket, the gray little comma of his daughter. and he very nearly said yes. Any sane man would have. And then Gail Foster, almost as an afterthought, said the sentence that changed everything. "I'm sorry, I really am. He does this. Whitlock, you are not the first one I have watched him do this to." Darius looked up. "What do you mean, not the first?" What Gail meant, and what she pulled the next morning when Darius asked her to, was that Sergeant Dan Whitlock had a pattern. Not a rumor, a record. Over 11 years, Whitlock had filed an extraordinary number of assault on an officer and resisting arrest charges, far more than anyone else in his precinct, and a startling number of them shared two features. The people he charged were overwhelmingly black or brown. And case after case, his body camera had been, according to his own reports, deactivated, malfunctioning, or not activated due to the dynamic nature of the encounter. There had been complaints, 8 of them, filed by people exactly like Darius, people who said plainly that the report was a lie. Everyone had been reviewed internally by the department, and everyone had been quietly closed. Unfounded. And those 8 people were not numbers. One was a man in his 40s who lost custody of his children to a conviction he always swore wasn't true. One was a college freshman who lost his scholarship, and with it, the first door his family had ever managed to get open. One was a father who lost 4 years, 4 birthdays, 4 Christmases, to a plea he took because a tired lawyer told him gently that the math was ugly. 8 people, with no footage and no leverage, had almost all done exactly what Darius was being told to do right now. They took the deal. They pled guilty to things they did not do, to escape a prison they did not deserve, and they carried those convictions like a stone for the rest of their lives. Lost jobs, lost homes, lost children, so that Sergeant Whitlock's record could stay clean, and his arrest numbers could stay high, and the machine could keep believing him. Darius Price closed the folder, and he understood, with the cold clarity of a man who has watched people die and learned exactly what a life is worth, that he was standing in front of the one door none of those 8 people had ever been allowed to walk through. "How sure are you," he asked Gail, "that his camera was really off that night?" She blinked. "The department says." "I know what the department says. I'm asking you something else." Darius leaned in. "When I was against that car, he kept saying, 'Stop reaching, stop resisting.' He was performing. You don't perform for an empty room. He thought something was recording. So either he is a fool, or that camera was not as off as he believes it was." Gail Foster had been a public defender for 16 years, and something in her chest that had gone numb a long time ago woke up. She did not subpoena the footage. The department had already sworn there wasn't any. She subpoenaed the upload logs from the camera's evidence server, the back-end records that every modern body camera writes automatically. The digital exhaust an office cannot reach and cannot delete, because it never lived on his camera at all. And what came back was a single, devastating line. The camera assigned to Sergeant Whitlock had recorded a file that night, 14 minutes and 9 seconds long. It had auto-uploaded to the cloud at 11:48 p.m., flagged by the system as manually deactivated by the user at the scene. Whitlock had reached down and switched off his own camera in the middle of the stop. But that camera, like a great many of them, kept a 30-second rolling buffer, and it resumed recording the instant his hand left the button. He had turned it off. It had turned itself back on, and it had been running the entire time, recording a struggle that he was, at that very moment, narrating to no one but the truth. Now, watch what Darius did, because this is the choice that defines him. When the footage surfaced, the DA's office panicked and came back with a sweeter deal. Charges dropped entirely. A clean record. An apology off the record. All Darius had to do was sign a release, go home, and let the whole thing quietly disappear. They would end his nightmare that very afternoon. All he had to do was let Sergeant Whitlock keep his. And Darius Price, 5 months from his daughter, said no. He said no because a release that erased his case would also bury the footage. And that footage was the only thing on earth that could reopen 8 other cases and free 8 other people who had pled guilty in that same concrete room with no door to walk through. He held the one tape that proved the pattern was real. If he took the quiet exit, he kept his own life and left them in their cells. He would not do it. "I am not signing anything that buries that video," he told the DA. "We are going to trial, and you are going to play it for everyone." The trial of Darius Price lasted 4 days. It ended in 11 minutes. Sergeant Whitlock took the stand on the second day, decorated, calm, utterly certain, and he told the jury the story he had told for 18 years.
He grabbed my vest. He reached for my weapon. I was in fear for my life.
He described, under oath, in granular detail, a violent struggle with a dangerous man. And then Gail Foster stood up.
Your Honor, to stand. Permission to play a 14-minute file.
And the lights went down. The jury watched a nurse in scrubs keep both hands on the wheel. They watched him say, "Yes, sir," and step out slow. They watched Sergeant Whitlock reach down and switch off his own camera. A deliberate motion, a man hiding what he was about to do. And they watched the timestamp in the corner keep running anyway.
"Stop resisting! Stop reaching!"
They watched him turn a calm, unresisting man into the side of a car. And they heard him narrate a fight that the video plainly showed was not happening.
"I'm not doing anything! I'm not doing anything!"
Stop reaching. And no one was reaching. They heard the exact words from the sworn report come out of the sergeant's own mouth in real time, describing a struggle he was inventing for a camera he was certain was dead. The courtroom did not gasp. It went silent, the way a room goes silent when 40 people understand, all at once, that they have been lied to, and that the lie was wearing a badge, and that it had almost certainly worked 100 times before. Darius Price was acquitted on all counts before lunch on the 4th day. But that was never the point, and that is why this story does not end there. The footage did not just clear one man. The upload logs Gail had subpoenaed told the back-end story of every stop Whitlock had ever made, and the metadata was its own confession. A deliberate hand reaching down to kill a camera, again and again, stop after stop, for years. The 8 buried complaints were pulled back out of the dark. The 8 convictions built on Sergeant Whitlock's word were reopened, one by one, and the people who had taken those impossible deals. The man who lost his children, the freshman who lost his scholarship, the father who lost 4 years, began, slowly, to get their names back. The district attorney, who had nearly railroaded Darius, turned the full weight of his office around and charged Sergeant Dan Whitlock with perjury, with falsifying official records, and with violating the civil rights of every person on that list. The Officer of the Year was walked out of his own precinct, past the rows of people who had believed him for 18 years. And the machine that had protected him finally went looking for how many other cameras had gone dark. And Darius? Darius did not give a triumphant speech on the courthouse steps. He had spent his whole adult life in rooms where people were at their most broken, and he had learned that there is a kind of winning that does not need an audience. He thanked Gail Foster, who would never look at a no-footage case the same way again. And then he went home. He kept his license. The man who restarts hearts went back to restarting hearts. 4 months later, Renee Price went into labor at the very hospital where Darius worked, and Darius was there, not behind plexiglass, but in the room, holding her hand, the way he had refused to let a lie take from him. When his daughter was born, he took the folded ultrasound photo out of his wallet. The gray little comma he had nearly traded 8 other people's freedom to keep, and he looked at the real thing in his arms. He had not just walked through the door. He had held it open behind him for everyone who came after. Now I want to hear from you. Darius could have gone home that afternoon a free man and left the others behind, and almost no one would have blamed him. Could you have turned down that deal? And have you ever told the truth and watched the room believe the lie instead? Tell me in the comments. Somebody reading needs to know they're not alone.